In 1958, Madame Callas was interviewed by Edward R. Murrow at her suite at the Waldorf in New York.
Madame Callas, much has been said and written about your temperament. What do you have to say? Are you really temperamental?
What do you mean by temperamental, Mr. Murrow? I quite haven't understood.
Well, I suppose tantrums, throwing things, screaming.
Dear. I have never thrown anything at anyone, though sometimes you feel like it. No, tantrums. It's not even true. It's just certain situations that turn up, you know nothing about it, and you just react as any normal human being.
But Callas was not just any normal human being. In that same year, 1958, she walked out on the Rome Opera, was barred from appearing at La Scala in Milan, broke up with her husband, began an affair with Aristotle Onassis, and was fired from New York's Metropolitan Opera by its director, Rudolph Bing.
There came the point where I had to decide, now is Madame Callas running the Met or am I running the Met? And at that time, I was still running the Met and said so, and canceled our agreement.
So you really did fire Maria Callas from the Metropolitan?
If you want to use that ugly word, that is so, yes.
Callas was again on CBS with Ed Murrow when the famous British conductor, Sir Thomas Beecham, asked her about the firing.
Can I ask Madame Callas a most important question?
Please do.
It's agitating all the social circles of London, and rumors are flying around about it. It concerns the little disagreement it is supposed to have taken place between Madame Callas and a misguided director of opera in New York.
Oh.
Now, one of the most startling rumors is that Madame Callas is supposed to have hit the gentleman on the head with a bottle of brandy. I want to know if that's true or not.
The newspapers have written so much, and so much, God only knows. I would advise whoever reads those newspapers not to believe either the half of the half. But I don't believe anything, because when I read it, I have the shocks of my life.
But was it a bottle of something else, madam?
But I never threw anything at anyone. Unfortunately, I wish I
never did.
It would be a shame for the bottle, you know, really.
15 years later, in November of 1973, a very different Maria Callas met Mike Wallace in her apartment in Paris for a rare interview on 60 Minutes.
Madame Callas, why is it that the world of opera is so passionate, so fraught with jealousy and drama?
Isn't every field that way?
No.
Oh, I'm sure, yes.
Look, your whole life has been constructed. Given that superb voice, the rest of it, professionally, has been constructed on drama.
Well, maybe the other people make drama.
Well,
What's the drama?
well, you know as well as I.
What?
It's walkouts and sicknesses and affairs and anger and jealousy, and what's the drama?
Have you ever walked out on your work? I'm sure you have. Furious one day.
Well, yes, but...
Only you're not in the newspaper.
That's correct. Now...
Anger, if you don't get angry sometimes, even not really, essentially, you never obtain the results. During performances, if I really didn't get angry, and they were not afraid, the other people would not work more than the necessary.
You mean they're afraid of you?
Afraid? Yeah, yes.
Afraid of what?
I would have to sort of whip them with my angers. If you don't whip them into working twice as hard, either morally or by your, shall we say, tantrum, which is also sometimes false, they would never be able to come at that date, shall we say, 3-4 days, as I prepared operas in 3 or 4 days. If I didn't really start screaming and yelling, you wouldn't have the result. We would not have gone on stage.
All right. You have not really sung in public.
In public, not since '65.
For 8 years.
No.
Why?
Well, one of those things, I needed a rest. I needed to detach myself also, because every now and then I think an artist has to sort of feel distant, take her distance.
But 8 years?
Well, years go by very quickly.
Well, then tell me, how does it feel to sing again now after 8 years?
Very nice. I wish I was what I was 20 years ago, but nobody is what he was 20 years ago.
What aren't you today that you were 20 years ago?
Well, the acrobats and the top notes as they used to be, and, you know, the fireworks that a young person has.
When the notices For instance, after Hamburg, where you opened on this new tour, when the notices are better for the personality than for the voice, is that a matter now of much concern to you, Madame Callas?
Well, first of all, no. First of all, I don't really read the critics. During my full glory, I've always had bad critics.
But you yourself know that your voice is not what it was.
The fact that I have made a career without having public relations, without having to bribe certain newspaper men, or to build up an image of mine, that has made things more difficult.
Who bribes newspapermen?
Oh, many artists.
No.
Oh, yes.
How do you mean bribe?
Well, sort of, you know, they give them either an invitation or they send a certain amount of money. And I have always resented that since I was very young.
You mean
Oh, yes.
operatic artists, or you know others as well?
All others as well. To have a job, you have to be nice to some person or another. Very few persons reach the peak with no help at all but your own talent.
Yes, but you're not talking about help. You're talking about bribes now.
Well, if the help has to come through bribery or through giving yourself up to someone or this and that, it amounts to the same. Now we're being technical.
You've said, I need to be constantly boosted because I am a born pessimist.
That is true.
Really?
That is true.
And you need somebody always puffing you up?
Yes, because the weapon that is against me is exactly that.
Huh.
Whatever I do is never good enough.
A perfectionist.
Perfectionist, unfortunately.
And perfectionists are miserable to live with.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
Are you a lonely person?
Not really. We have to be alone. I feel the necessity to be alone frequently. It's our work. I don't fear loneliness because I'm never alone. I have friends. I have my own interior world that I can live with myself for weeks. I don't need other people, but I know that other people are willing to be with me when I want. So I'm not really alone.
Obviously, you've had a great success in your professional life. Your private life has not perhaps been as successful, no?
No. No.
Why?
Well, why? Probably I became a bit too famous for my own good. And maybe also I put men on a pedestal.
Who?
Well, for instance, my husband, he wanted so much that I be La Divina. For instance, he was taking things out on people as he was nothing special.
If your husband was nothing special, why did you marry him in the first place?
He was a good person, I thought. And if you have as my home family was not, with my mother, I was not well off, and I was alone, and I felt that this person really loved me. But I'm afraid that he loved what I represented. It was a very unfortunate episode of my life that I prefer not to discuss because...
You are quoted as saying that your fear has always been to live your old age in poverty.
Nope, I've never said that.
Misquotation.
Misquotation.
You know, you talk about misquotation, Madame Callas. One of the most famous of the quotations, and I suppose it's a misquotation, or maybe not.
No, I have the courage to tell you if it's not.
All right, all right. And that has to do with your mother. You said, mother can go to work, she is young enough, because...
No, I never said that.
You did not say that?
No. Certain people, dishonest people, took advantage of her battle against me to be put in the newspapers or to have her print stories, and they would gain money.
She claimed, of course, that there was no money, that she needed money, and that you refused.
Because at a certain moment, she used blackmail, unfortunately. And I don't like blackmail by anybody.
How do you mean blackmail?
Well, I mean, she says, you either give me this and that, otherwise I'll plaster you against all the newspapers, and that she did. There's no use in seeing each other and being false when they're... I don't think that blood really ties you that much. I think I have good friends that have helped me more than my mother.
But the fact is that your father, your mother, and your sister somehow have left your life along the way.
Shall we say we frankly did not agree too much. They had a way of living that was not my way.
Your country, you saw fit in 1966 to...
My country?
To discard your U.S. citizenship.